Welcome, everybody. This is the Academy of Adoption and Assisted Reproduction Attorneys. This is part of our series on the different state laws and introducing you to the fellows that we have in each of those states. This is Kansas, and we've got three of our fellows. We do have a few other art fellows in the state of Kansas, but today we're going to introduce you to three of them. And let's start with, how about Rachel?
Hey there, I'm glad that you came around to look at the website and the video as well. You must be looking at Kansas as somewhere to potentially grow your family. I'm in Wichita, Kansas, which is the south central part of the state. I've been in practice since 1989. Yes, that's 35 years, and I've been practicing in the field of ART for a little over 30 of those years.
Wonderful. Megan.
Hi, my name is Megan Mansour. I also practice in Wichita with the lovely Rachel Perner. I have been practicing for 17 years, which I don't know if that's like age and you get used to saying that as you get older, but it feels weird to say. 17 years, I only practice in family building. So I do adoption, surrogacy, and foster care litigation. I do a lot more litigation than I ever thought I would, but I actually have started to enjoy it, which again took me a couple years, and now here we are. So yes, thanks for hopping on and learning about Kansas. We're going to call it surrogacy law, but art and family building in Kansas.
There you go. Perfect. Joanna.
Hi, I'm Joanna Beck Wilkinson, and I am a Quad A licensed attorney in Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, and Kansas. But my primary office is in St. Louis, Missouri, and my practice is limited to family building. I've been doing this also for about 17 years, and I do practice with my mom, Mary Beck. So we are a family law firm in more than one way. And I practice this area of the law because I love families and children. In fact, I love children so much that I have 4 of my own, and they are all boys.
And Joanna's family photos online are always very, very entertaining. So, yeah. All right, my friends. So, if people are looking at Kansas, there's certain search criteria we know they're doing immediately, right? So, if they're looking just generally at Kansas, how friendly, Rachel, is Kansas to assisted reproduction generally?
Generally speaking, very friendly, but you've got to be with the right attorneys. Strongly suggest Quad A attorneys, because there are some judges in some judicial districts that are a little less flexible when it comes to establishing pre-birth parentage than others. And so experience counts. This is one of those areas that you want someone to really tell you how the system is going to work in such a way, and that you understand, number one, and number two, that in fact that's the way the system will work for you and your family.
Okay, so for LGBTQ plus community, Megan, is it a safe place for them? What do they need to know? Any warning signs for them?
Yes, thanks, Kim. Kansas, I think, wouldn't be wrong for people to assume that Kansas is generally sort of conservative in our political leanings. However, I like to tell people, woohoo, Kansas is a very friendly state for family building for LGBTQ, our community. So that is, welcome. And the reason I say that is because Kansas doesn't have statutory authority that was enacted specifically for arts, but brilliant people like Rachel Perners of the world have started using our domestic and paternity code. And actually it is friendly to getting the orders that we need to establish parental rights for same-sex couples, single individuals. Even we can do unmarried. I like people in Kansas to go ahead and be married, but there are some really good presumptions that we use in our standing code that allows us, to get the orders that we need to ensure parental rights for all sorts of families. And one of those facts is that in Kansas, we can actually get that order prior to the baby being born. So a family who is growing their family through a surrogate or a gestational carrier can get that finality and an order acknowledging who the intended parents are prior to the baby being born, which gives a lot of peace of mind to families that I speak to that are considering where they're going to file. And sometimes you may have options on where you want to file. We also have favorable laws for pregnant women. We still have the option to consider all options, which include termination, and that can come into play when you're looking at the initial stages of having a gestational carrier. So that was a long-winded answer of saying Kansas may seem, we are conservative in some ways, but in the family building, we actually have very good law that we use to ensure parental rights for same-sex couples and really for gestational carriers as well, when I speak about that she has all the options during the pregnancy.
All right, so Joanna, what's the right time in the process of their journey? When should they first start speaking to a Kansas attorney?
Well, so I'm a little superstitious, and so I usually tell people not to hire a lawyer to write a surrogacy contract until they have full medical clearance from the clinic. Once they do that, that's a good time to talk to a lawyer. And sometimes there's kind of a hurry up if the fertility clinic has already given them the go ahead at that point. There can be kind of a rush. But I think most of us will encourage people to wait until they have medical clearance. As far as the parentage process goes, unlike other states, there are some states where the contract process and the parentage process are necessarily linked. Like, for example, in Illinois, if you meet all the statutory requirements, then you get your parentage. In Kansas, those processes are distinct to the extent that you don't need to start your parentage action at the same time you're starting your contract. You can wait until you've achieved a pregnancy and you've passed that 12-week mark that most people are concerned about. I usually tell people to get in touch with me around 14 to 16 weeks. I believe most parentage orders can be granted or are granted by 20 to 24 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
can I just tie on to that, Joanna? I would strongly encourage you, if you're looking at a connection in Kansas and a gestational carrier in Kansas, to feel free to call any Kansas Quad A ART lawyer up front to get a level of comfort for yourself after talking to a lawyer that this is the real deal and this is how things are going to work legally in the state of Kansas.
okay, good advice. And generally, I mean, another common question for every single state, people want to know how fast or how slow is the birth certificate process after the birth?
We're proud of that.
Okay, good. I like that I saw smiles. You know, some of the states, it's like, oh God, don't bring it up.
We just got one last week in 2 weeks. So
Okay.
that, it can be pretty quick. You want to, again, to circle back into, say you want an attorney who knows what they're doing because, attorneys like Joanna and Rachel, we all have relationships with Vital Statistics. We know how they like it. We try to get those orders to them on the outset, and they can happen pretty quickly. It's not foolproof. Sometimes it can take longer. We also have the option, which works well for international parents, is that you can actually do what's called, I call it this. So Rachel, I don't know if you call this, but a walkthrough where you can go to Vital Statistics with the right documents in the morning and go pick it up later that same day, which you can do that even faster than obviously waiting on the mail. So in some circumstances, based on location, we would be talking to clients who needed it really quickly to work that out. Other times, you're not going to wait in the state and then we can get it to you within a couple weeks. One thing that I always like to tell people on the outset is that there will always be an original birth certificate when you're working with a gestational carrier. And despite and specifically Rachel's efforts to get this change, on our birth certificate, the original will say the mother who actually delivered the child, so our carrier, but we are immediately, in the order will state that is not factually correct. It's not the parent, and they are immediately amending it. And I like to be upfront with people and say too that it does, our final birth certificate for them will say amended, but that doesn't change the finality and what it means. It's an acknowledgement of the process that we have to go through in Kansas.
Okay.
Right. And Megan, that really is not indicative. The birth record itself, it's not really the certificate. We ask that the record be certified, but it's certified later after that original is sealed. And the amendment, no one knows what it is. It could be a transposed name or a street number, or it's not specific as to what it is. But we are very proud of our vital statistics and our public servants. They work hard. They are willing to work with international clients. It is very common, I think, for all of us to send couriers up when we've got international clients that want to get home in order to expedite the birth certificate process, which happens to be across the street from the Secretary of State, who will then apostille copies, and international clients will need those for their return home.
Great. I mean, you may be one of the only states that have said how proud of their government officials they are, but you know.
Kim, I think you have to ask Rachel and Megan about the sealing process and the heightened confidentiality in Kansas, because it's awesome.
Great.
Well,
anything else?
And I think any of us could talk to that. Joanna, I know you and Megan and I have all worked on cases together, many cases before, but the court is willing to enter an order that seals and sequesters the record, although we have to have a hearing in order to do that. But also the parties are anonymously captioned. And so no one can go to the court docket and see that you are a party to the litigation. And the confidentiality aspect of that can be important, not just for the intended parents, but also sometimes for the gestational carriers or the surrogates involved.
That's a big difference. There's a lot of states where they say they're sealed, but the names are still, the caption with the party names is still available. That's very good information. Okay, anything else with Kansas that people need to know that's real specific?
I would just add that we're in most jurisdictions that you can get a hearing really quickly, and I know that is very different from even our next door neighbor and some other bigger states, that we are able to get part of by the relationship you have with judges, but also just in general. I think Kansas is pretty fast in acknowledging when a case involves a child, and we can get a hearing really quickly. I would say we get, once requested, we'll have a hearing on a parentage order within a week or two at the most. Sometimes if there's a reason we have to speed it up, we can do it, the next day at times. But that's much different. You're not stressed about when you're going to get the hearing date. You will have finality, when it is, and then that's a short time frame. So Kansas actually is pretty fast in a lot of ways as well, which certainly we all know is helpful for our clients when so much of it is uncertain, and you can't control a lot about the pregnancy, but you can know when you're going to get the order, which is something families want.
And I think that that's an important point to make. Our judges and their assistants work very hard. Our court clerks will work very hard. I mean, they go above and beyond to see that we get the appropriate certifications of the appropriate court documents in a timely manner. And that just simply isn't the case in a lot of states. You might wait for weeks or sometimes months in order to have the clerk finally get to your number in line. And we're fortunate in Kansas that that's not a part of our reality.
You are fortunate, and it's surprising. It's great. And I think it's something to be said too about some of the smaller states, versus the very populated states. So, all right, one last thing. Joanna, is there a benefit to choosing a Quad A fellow over other attorneys?
Very much so, yes. So the Academy of Adoption Assisted Reproduction Attorneys is by invitation only, which means that you cannot join without submitting an application and having a rather exhaustive review of that application. I know this because it took me a while to get in, even though I was a legacy. You have to have a requisite level of experience and knowledge in order to be admitted and become a fellow. So that offers the parties some assurance that when they go to Quad A, which is at adoptionart.org, they're going to find an attorney who is truly specializing in family building law.
Great. Now, you probably got to this video by going to our website to start with, but as Joanna just said, it's adoptionart.org. And when you go to the assisted reproduction page, there's a state directory where you can see all the state laws. And if you are looking at various states, I welcome you to go check out each state that you're thinking of potentially working with and check out what the law is and get to know our fellows on each of those sites. Under Kansas, you'll be able to find the contact information for each of these fellows and a couple other art fellows that we have in the state. Please reach out to them. They're your greatest asset in your journey, I promise you. Thank you for your time, everybody. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.